Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Supervisor Galvin, can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Did you hear him?
Yes, we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Okay, yes, we can hear
I
you.
can hear
Thank
you on the webinar. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning and welcome to a special meeting of the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors. I'll call this special meeting to order. Would you please call the roll?
Yes, good morning. Supervisor Hickman?
Here.
Supervisor Gates?
Here.
Supervisor Galvin is joining us remotely.
Here, can you all hear me?
Yes, thank you. Supervisor Gallardo,
Here.
and Chairman Sellers.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to thank my colleagues for making themselves available today for these important items. Number one on our agenda is the appointment for Legislative State Representative District 8. So now's the time to consider a nominee to fill a vacancy in Legislative District 8. I will ask Vice Chairman Supervisor Galvin to speak at this time. Tom?
Mr. Chairman, thank you so much. I really want to thank all of the candidates who put their name forward, who want to serve in the state legislature. These are very important times for our state, most notably the fact that the state is facing a huge yawning budget deficit. I want to particularly highlight each of them by name: Deborah Nardozzi, Jacob Rayford, Jevin Hodge. All of them each have spent decades serving our community. We sent out a questionnaire. They gave very thoughtful answers, which we appreciate the time and effort that they put into it. I met with all three individually. I was impressed by all three. All of them cared deeply and passionately, not only about the state of Arizona, but in particular their district, LD8, which is in our county district, District 2. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to recommend that Jevin Hodge be appointed to the state legislature.
We have a motion.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I would go ahead and second that motion. I do want to thank the candidates for putting in their names. I know how important this process is, and we at this board have always taken these appointments very seriously. They're always difficult. You always have well-qualified candidates putting in, and these are tough. I know you had some input. You met with candidates. I have spoken to the candidates. I know Supervisor Galvin has done his due diligence. He has really kind of looked at it and what's in the best interest of not only LD8, the state of Arizona, and so on. So thank you, Galvin, for all your work. But Mr. Chairman, I will second that motion and hope that Mr. Hodges will go down there and hit the ground running since that legislative session is up and running. So I would second that.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'd like to make a comment after the vote.
Okay, and I will just say I did have the opportunity to speak with each one of the candidates, and what an impressive list of candidates we had. I think any one of you could have been excellent in this position, and thank you for being willing to serve. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion carries. Supervisor or Vice Chairman Galvin.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I want to say thank you to all of my colleagues. Thank you to Mr. Gallardo for seconding that motion. I just want to, first of all, congratulate Mr. Hodge on his worthy application to the state legislature. I think he will be an asset. He has pledged to work with everyone there on both sides of the aisle. There are many issues that do not require, I would consider to say, toxic partisanship. And I think Mr. Hodge has exhibited throughout his career that he's willing to talk to, meet with, and work for anyone. But I also want to once again thank you to Ms. Nardozzi and Mr. Rayford, both of them very impressive, and I know they will continue serving the community in different ways. Thank you to all three of you who applied, and congratulations to Mr. Hodge, and good luck.
Okay, well, thank you for being here this morning. We appreciate you and your service. Thank you. Okay, we will now move on to item number 2. Establish Public Safety Funding Committee and adopt the change for the committee. Thank you. So before we start, I want to thank Michelle Heineman, her government relations team, and Zach Shura for all the work they put into this item we're about to discuss. Zach, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We appreciate the opportunity to be in front of you today. To my left here is Brian Schmidt, who has graciously accepted the offer to staff the committee for us, but I will introduce him later on in the presentation. We're happy to be here before you today within the first month of your chairmanship to report back on staff's work on one of your chairman's priorities and to have you all consider taking some action. In your speech, you announced this creation of the Public Safety Funding Committee and that the charge would be to look at long-term funding for public safety in the criminal justice system, as well as any reforms to help better produce outcomes and safer communities. Today, I plan to provide some historical context to your priority and to help the public understand how we arrived here today. In 1997, the Board of Supervisors created what they called a Citizens Advisory Committee on Jail Planning. At that time, Maricopa County was woefully in need of more jail space to accommodate the rapidly increasing population of the county. The committee explored several funding methods over 19 separate public meetings and ultimately recommended to the Board of Supervisors a 1/3 cent sales tax, and that tax be an ongoing dedicated revenue source for jail operations. As this board knows, but perhaps the public does not, Maricopa County is the only county prohibited by the legislature from referring questions directly to the voters and is required to seek legislation to authorize those questions to be on the ballot. Because of this, the tax sought by the Board of Supervisors was reduced through the legislative process to a 1/5 of a cent. This 1/5 cent sales tax was passed by the legislature and voters for an initial 9-year term or $900 million in revenue, whichever came first. And in 2002 was renewed by the legislature and voters for an additional 20 years to the spring of 2027. The current tax is projected to bring in about $270 million in fiscal year 24 and represents consistently around 50 to 60% of the detention fund. This is the budget unit responsible for funding jail facilities and maintenance, sheriff jail operations, adult probation, correctional health services, and a number of other vital programs serving those who are incarcerated. Now to the 2024 and our current effort. A small working group of staff have met diligently to understand the previous board's efforts and to adequately fund the criminal justice system. We've had dozens of meetings with County Budget and Finance, the Maricopa County Attorneys and Sheriff's Offices, and the Superior Court to map out what a new effort would look like. I'd like to present to you today a draft charge for the new committee to be called the Public Safety Funding Committee. The goal of the charge is to ask the committee to examine funding mechanisms, review the past goals and objectives of the previous funding efforts, assess current facilities supported by the funding, analyze staffing needs, review and assess probation and other recidivism-related programming, and to advise the board on other items pertaining to the above. We have drafted this charge to be relatively broad, seeking to receive a blunt assessment from the committee. The makeup of the committee will be as follows: 1 member from each board office, 1 extra member from the chairman of the Board of Supervisors to be designated chair, 1 member from the presiding judge of the Superior Court, 1 member from the Maricopa County Attorney, and 1 from the Maricopa County Sheriff. The citizens that you, this board, and our county partners have nominated for appointment today are as follows: John Lewis, President and CEO of the East Valley Partnership; Dr. Heather Carter, Senior Vice Chancellor of External Affairs for the Maricopa County Community College District; Assistant Chief Dan Butler of the Mesa Police Department; Chief Brian Tobin of the Daisy Mountain Fire District; Jason Barron of the Salt River Project; Marissa Calderon, Director of Family Empowerment for Chicanos por la Causa; Kimber Lanning, CEO of Local First Arizona and Chair of the Greater Phoenix Leadership's Criminal Justice Reform Task Force; Dr. Don Noggle, former Director of Mental Health for Maricopa County Correctional Health Services; and Barbara Broderick, former Chief of Adult Probation for the Maricopa County Superior Court. And last but certainly not least on this slide, I'd like to announce that Brian Schmidt, as I mentioned earlier, has agreed to staff the committee as its director. Brian comes to us from the Independent Redistricting Commission, where he has successfully facilitated the IRC's redrawing of our state's political boundaries. We are excited to have a true professional on board to help facilitate another successful recommendation from the committee. I'd also like to point out that Emily Krager from the Burgess Law Group will be outside counsel to the committee. She has extensive experience representing Maricopa County and will do a fine job in that. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to take any questions from you or the board.
Questions or comments from the board?
Mr. Chairman, first of all, thank you, Zach and Brian, for stepping up and being part of what is really a critical mission here. I mean, this is something, we understand the importance of it. We have quite a few opportunities to really have a robust discussion. You see a very diverse group of individuals coming from different backgrounds. But I can just kind of, from my own personal point of view, really want to stress the importance of how do we look at reducing recidivism? How do we look at how do we deal with those that are coming back into our communities? How do we help them be successful? I mean, to me, the programs and the services for those folks that are leaving our detention and our jails is just so critical. Anything from mental health, behavioral health. Sometimes it's just, how do you obtain a driver's license? How do you get a copy of your Social Security card? How do you, it's all those stuff that many of us take for granted. We all have them in our wallets. We take them everywhere. But unfortunately, there are folks that kind of live in a different world. They don't have the many of the luxuries that many folks have every day. So how do we help them simulate? It can be anything, Mr. Chairman, in terms of workforce development, housing. It's no secret. Those folks that get released, have many challenges in front of them. Many of them, unfortunately, wind up right down the street at our cash shelter. So how do we help? And I think that would be the focus. It's not only the post as they leave, but even from a prevention side, what are we doing to help folks not get tied up in the criminal justice system? I mean, there's a lot that we can actually, or this committee can actually look at and really have and do a deep dive and look at some of these critical issues. And I think that, in my opinion, really should be one of the big priorities of this committee as they move forward. They have a big task in front of them, and I wish them well. They definitely have my support as they move forward. And I'm very interested to see what they come out with at the very end, what type of reports and recommendations that they present to this board. But this is one time that I think we can really do a deep dive in how do we really address some of the social issues that many of these people face every day, and how do we keep folks from getting into our criminal justice system. I know we had a really huge discussion over the last, during Chairman Hickman's term, around fentanyl and how we are moving forward with that. Another key portion to this, how are we addressing these key issues? And so I look forward to seeing what this commission comes forward. I think, again, I think there's a lot of opportunity to really grapple on some serious issues and be very interested at the final outcome. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Supervisor Gallardo, and I'll just add on to what he said. I think if you look at the list of people that we have on this board, it should be obvious that we felt that it was really important that we have a very diverse cross-section of our community to help put this together. The board is not going into this with any preconceived notion. We want a board to go out and interact with or a committee that will go out and interact with the community and get real answers to some of these issues as we move forward. Supervisor Gates.
Mr. Chair, I just want to thank you for your leadership on this. Got this here ready to go in the first month of your chairmanship. This is extremely important. I want to thank Zach and everyone as well for the work that was put into this. I think the key to this, key word is safety, right? This is a public safety funding committee, and I appreciate the diverse, as Supervisor Gallardo talked about, the diverse charge that this committee has. It's not just about jails. We have a law enforcement on there, which is very important, but we also have, from District 3, the chief of the Daisy Mountain Fire District. That's an important safety issue. People may not think of the county as sort of providing fire service, but the partnership that we have with the fire districts around the county is very important. It's going to be great to have them at the table, as well as people with expertise in probation, which this is now a major funding source for probation, as well as representative with experience with mental health, which we know is a very important issue. And in fact, I'll be attending the Maricopa County Mental Health Committee meeting with Presiding Judge Joe Welty later today. So I just appreciate your leadership, Mr. Chair, and excited to see what this committee comes back with. And of course, Brian, great to see you. Brian and I worked together at the City of Phoenix when he was Councilman Waring's chief, and thank you for bringing your expertise to the table, and appreciate the work you'll be doing. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, again, I applaud you as well. I heard this loud and clear that this is something that you wanted to tackle quickly, and I appreciated that. We have a great committee that is formed up, great leader, I hope. My thoughts are, Steve, I hear you loud and clear. My family's been dealing with, but from a different angle, on the Department of Corrections, state prisoners that have been found guilty and have served their term, and the recidivism issues that go along with that, and the programming that needs to happen when it comes to housing and everything. It's really going to be hard if the state is struggling with that to expect what we can pull out of our jail system, to get people back, folded into this community and not breaking laws, and how to do that. Well, it's to plug them into the economy. I really appreciate Kimber Lanning stepping up. Kimber has come out to see what our business has done with that, what the Department of Corrections has done, and she's going to be a great advocate for in that space that you're talking about, because she's seen it. And also that business mindset that she has on Local First. I think that's great, and I'm appreciative that she's going to represent, some of the Maricopa County Attorney's Office perspective on that, because this funds a vibrant jail system, sheriff department, law enforcement, prosecution, defense, a lot of things that this tax has to pay for. In my time, when I was chairman in 2017, I believe, the two loudest advocates to continue to keep this tax going was Sheriff Joe Arpaio and County Attorney at that time, Bill Montgomery, that came in and talked to a legislature to saying what the need was with that. And I can still remember, it was Senate President Andy Biggs, and I was in that room trying to get something across the line so we could show the community that we are going to continue to pay and do the best we can with limited resources to keep not just the prisoners safe, but also the staff safe, and also the courts safe. And that's what this pays for. We've had a hole blown into us, the Maricopa County taxpayer, for years now, where this tax doesn't cover all of those necessary things. So I hope that your committee takes a look at that too. This started, this historical perspective, I hope the committee really digs into. It started as 1/3 of a cent, and it got to 1/5 of a cent. And the county taxpayer has had to shoulder the burden for a lot of years to pay for the rest. So I hope the committee will take a look and see what has happened with the communities on with the per diem rate. City of Phoenix pays a lot of money per diem to fund this jail system. There has been a city that's pulled out and have gone a new direction, a la Mayberry, with their city jail, which is Mesa. So they must think that they can provide better service to the community under their tax rate. So I'd like you guys to take a look at that, because quite possibly the local jurisdictions might be faced with an issue of people that commit crimes in their district, commit or not, right? Jails are filled with people that have not been found guilty or innocent yet to protect. They might be looking at having to stand something up, in their respective communities. So I applaud this group, Mr. Chairman. I applaud you to start it. Anything I can do to help when it comes to issues with recidivism, fentanyl in the jail, anything that we can do to keep our community safe with this incredibly vital task that I believe at this point, the spend that the Maricopa County taxpayer spends with their property tax, half of it goes to public safety. in the way of jail, in the way of the sheriff's department, as well as the county attorney's office and the justice court system. So, thank you.
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
Clint.
And good
Anything from Vice Chairman Galvin?
Mr. Chairman, I was going to ask if I can make a comment after we vote, but I'll do it now. I just want to highlight, well, first of all, I cannot even speak better than what my colleagues just said, explaining the important role of this committee. But I do want to highlight my nominee, which is Assistant Chief of the Mesa Police Department, Dan Butler, who I'm proud to nominate to this committee. Obviously, public safety is vitally important, and it's important for all of us, whether we are residents, whether we're business people, raising kids, worrying about our grandparents, worrying about our neighbors. It's vitally important. It's important for the future and the robust health of this county. I'm really proud that Dan Butler has agreed to take on this role. He has worked for the Mesa Police Department for 23 years. He's the Patrol Operations Bureau Assistant Chief. This bureau is the largest bureau in the Mesa Police Department with over 500 people. During the last 4 years, Dan Butler was Assistant Chief. He led the following divisions: Human Resources, Wellness, Basic and Advanced Training, Financial Services, Community Relations, Holding, Research and Planning, and Forensic Services. And he represents law enforcement nationally as a committee member for the International Association of Chiefs of Police. And as you can see, he is very well qualified to serve a vital role for law enforcement's voice on this committee. And I'm just very proud that this committee represents the broad swath of our very diverse and very fascinating county. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Tom. Okay, the board will now consider item number 2.
Mr. Chairman, before we go to the motion, and I guess I'll turn to our clerk or our attorneys. The District 5 representative, I've really wanted, and I think the chiefs were probably getting tired of me asking, like, who's all going to be on the committee? Who's all going to be? I really wanted to see who folks were looking at possibly appointing and trying to fill in, okay, what I felt might be missing. And that's where I came up with my candidate, Marissa Calderon, who is what she comes for la casa. She's the director of family empowerment, and what she can bring to the table. And I'm a big advocate is that how do we look at criminal justice from a prevention, intervention side of it? I mean, and anything from you look at the struggles, and it goes back to the root cause. Why are people getting in trouble? Yes, you're going to have folks that do some terrible things, and they need to be held accountable, and you need a jail system. You need all that stuff. You need the courts, the probation. You need all that stuff, and I'm there. I get it. But I think there's a role that we can play. And I think if there's one thing, Mr. Chairman, that Republicans and Democrats, this is a nonpartisan issue, by the way, folks, but there's one thing Republicans and Democrats, the far left to the far right, the one thing is how do we reduce the cost of criminal justice? The fact that half our budget is put towards criminal justice, it's insane. It's insane. It shouldn't cost that much. So let's take a step back. Let's look, say, what's causing it? Why are folks going down this road? We had our county attorney here was it last week or so in our budget presentation talking about retail theft. Well, why are folks stealing? So what is it? Marissa Calderon deals with some of these family issues every day. How do we, from anything from food security to just supporting their families? And this is the lens that I really hope we look at. So I think that's where Marissa Calderon plays a valid role. And Mr. Chairman, just to pile on, and this hasn't been brought up, but the different partners, I mean, I sat down and I had a whole laundry list of possible names from various backgrounds who can be part of this particular group or commission. And there's various names, but the different partners that really need to be engaged. And I hope the commission starts to engage. Anything from our school districts, I hear it all the time. I've been on school boards. I hear it all the time. How do we end the school to prison pipeline? Well, if you want to end the school to prison pipeline, it's dealing with the economic and social challenges these kids face every day. That's what's causing it. So how do we look at that? So bringing in the school system, I think, bringing in reentry programs. I think there's a number of nonprofits from behavioral health, mental health. Our cash shelter has to be part of this discussion. Those folks, and I venture out to say, I could be wrong, but I'm going to venture out to say that many of the folks that get released from our jail system go right down the street. They have nowhere to go. Unfortunately, they've burned bridges with their own families. They have nowhere to go. So unless there's some type of a support system, someone's going to help them. One, they're going to go right back into what got them in trouble, and more, and even worse, they're going to go to the shelter and find themselves back into, and that's where the recidivism comes in. So there's a lot of partners. I wish you all the best. But going back to my original question, do we have to amend them? How do I add Marissa Calderon to the list of names that were not posted?
I recommend that when you get to item 3, that you make a motion to adopt item 3 with the addition of Marissa Calderon.
Okay.
Okay. So are you making a motion?
Well, that's on item number 3, but can I ask you a
Go ahead.
question, Steve? Did you talk to her?
Yes.
And she understands the role and she can put the time towards it?
Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
This is what she does for a living.
okay.
Okay, so the first thing is to adopt the committee.
Item number 2,
Item number
establish public safety funding.
That's correct.
Correct.
Mr. Chairman, I make the motion to approve item number 2, which is establishing a public safety funding committee and adopt the change, or the charge for the committee.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I will second that motion and just publicly thank Marissa Calderon for stepping up and serving in this important role.
That's number 3, though.
Oh, okay. Well, then, when I get to
You're
number
gonna have
3,
to
I'll
make
do
it
that. All right.
On 3.
But number
Okay.
2, yes.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion carries. Okay, and I got ahead of myself because.
I know. We'll blame Clint.
Okay. Now, appoint Public Safety Funding Committee members. Any discussion on this item before we ask for a motion?
This is where I guess I would thank Marissa Calderon for her.
Okay, would you like to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve, let me make sure I do this right, because where did it go? I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I should have been a little bit more prepared. Mr. Chairman, I move that we appoint the following committee members to the Public Safety Committee Commission that is listed on the agenda. I would add Marissa Calderon to be the appointment in District 5. Did I do that right?
We have a motion
Second?
and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? That motion carries, and we are adjourned.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.